Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
The fatalities in Cebu have jumped to 72 after Tuesday's 6.9 magnitude earthquake. Authorities say the death toll could still rise as search operations continue.
The Senate passed a resolution calling for the International Criminal Court to put former President Duterte under house arrest.
The Justice Department said that Senators Mark and Camille Villar and their mother, former Senator Cynthia Villar, are being investigated for ties to a contractor that was awarded 18.5 billion pesos in government contracts.
The Senate has commended Alas Pilipinas after the men's volleyball team made history in their debut at the FIVB World Championship.
First in the news, the reported death toll from the magnitude 6.9 earthquake in Cebu has now risen to over 70. Many residents are forced to sleep outdoors, fearing aftershocks. Here's the report.
A fast food restaurant in Bogo City collapsed and was destroyed by the strong tremor. Glass panels shattered and debris rained down in another eatery in the city. Even Bogo City Hall sustained major damage along with a series of establishments that caved in. Roads cracked open, showing just how strong the 6.9 magnitude quake was last night. Outside the Bogo Hospital, mats were laid on the ground where the bodies of the victims were lined up. One by one, more body bags arrived. Among them, a child. Families wept as they struggled to identify their loved ones. Resident Eliza Ho lost her father, who had just celebrated his birthday. She said he hugged her sibling to shield them when a landslide struck after the quake.
Wala na ako, Papa. Hindi ko kayo mausaon ako pag-explain sa iya. Lahat na ako, Papa. Lahat na ako. Hindi ko kayo mausayon kung buhato na wala na siya.
Margie Baterna meanwhile lost her mentor.
Lasa na ito na mo nga. Bakak, yakatawa.
Beside the bodies were the injured, some of them treated outside because of the lack of hospital space. Search and retrieval operations continue.
Like for example, kanina yung anak tsaka yung father. Siyempre, yung father as an instinct, talagang hinag niya yung anak niya. Yun namang last na nakita natin kanina sa Sitio Balibag, yung mother tsaka yung dalawang anak niya maliit. Ganun pa rin yung situation.
In Medellin town, residents stayed in open fields, setting up makeshift shelters to avoid the dangers of aftershocks. Vice President Sara Duterte visited Medellin to bring assistance to survivors. Authorities say the death toll could still rise as search operations continue. For News 5, Mon Gualvez, we are One News.
Now let's get updates from Bogo City in Cebu, the epicenter of the magnitude 6.9 earthquake. We have mobile journal Arles de los Santos on the ground. Arles, kumusta na ba dyan?
Magandang umaga, Angela at Diego. No, nandito nga tayo ngayon sa Bogo City kung saan naging epicenter ito ng yumanig na 6.9 magnitude na lindol. At ngayon ay nasa 72 na nga ang naitatalang naisawi. Sa pinakahuling datos ng Cebu Provincial NDRRMC ay umabot na nga sa 47,000 ang mga pamilya ang naapektuhan nito o sa madaling sabi 170,000 na mga individual ang ang magkakasama at magkakasunod na ginulat nitong lindol na ito. Bibigyan ko kayo ng mabilis na turno kung ano nga ba ang itsura dito sa lugar ngayon. Makikita ninyo itong nasa aking likuran, itong kalsada na ito mismo, ngumanga dahil sa lakas ng lindol. Gayon din ang mga bahayan dito, gaya na lamang ng bakura na ito. At meron pa dito sa isang bahagi pa ng lugar dito na kung saan nga ay bumigay din ang ilan sa mga espasyo ng kanilang mga tahanan. At isa lamang ito sa paulit-ulit na senaryo na nakikita natin dito dahil talagang napakalakas daw ng lindol na kanilang naranasan. Bagamat nagkaroon ng mga paglindol noong mga nakaraang taon o sa pagitan ng 1885 hanggang 2013 na nasa 8 mga lindol nga raw ang kanilang naranasan. Pero hindi naman daw katulad nitong naranasan nga nila nitong Tuesday lamang ng gabi. Kaya naman talagang bangungot kung ito ay kanilang ilarawan. At sa ngayon, sa ulat ng DPWH ay umabot na nga sa 2 bilyong piso ang naging damage sa mga pag-aari ng mga residente rito.
Yes, Arles, I know you've been on the ground, nakapag-ikot ka na, no? Ang question ko is about yung mga ground crew natin na nag-search and retrieval, no? Is it tama ba yung report sa pumapasok na retrieval na ang word, hindi na search and rescue?
Tama, Diego, no? Kasi sa 24 to 48 hours talagang inaasahan natin na kung maaari pa mahanap na buhay, no, yung mga katawan ng mga tao na maaaring natabunan. Dahil magpasa hanggang ngayon may ilan na pauulat na mga nawawala at yung iba nga na mga natatagpuan patay na, no, o pumanaw na at nadaganan na ng mga dingding. Kahit nga kagabi sa pagpunta natin ay marami pa din ang nagpapatuloy na search and retrieval operation dito sa mga barangay dito sa Bogo at talagang kahit 2:00 na ng madaling araw ay nagpapatuloy ang mga ito. Yung mga kalsada rin dito ay talagang bako-bako, no? Talagang parang umangat Parang pinaghihiwalay pa nga sa ilang mga pagkakataon dito. Bukod pa dyan, wala ring mga kuryente dito yung mga residente. Meron ditong isang bahagi sa kanilang public park kung saan sama-sama silang nakabilad sa ilalim ng init ng araw dahil doon lamang mayroong libreng pang-charge ng mga cellphone at mayroong generator na magagamit para makapag-contact sila sa kanilang mga pamilya. Maswerte lamang tayo ngayon dahil stable ang ating signal pero mula kagabi ng ating pagdating ay putol-putol na yan.
One more for that. Arles, you gave us a number, I think over 70 ang ang confirmed dead, no? Ang question ko dito is how many pa sa mga datos na nakukuha mo ay missing so far, because this number could go and could add to the casualties. Well, God forbid, sana hindi, no?
Tama ka dyan, Diego, no? Ayon nga sa provincial government ng Cebu ay mayroon pang 20,000 na mga individual ang inaasahan na nawawala at hindi pa rin apektado, no? Apektado yung 20,000 and then sila yung mga displaced. Pero yung mga nawawala, wala pa tayong eksaktong bilang kung ilan nga ba ang mga ito. Pero may ilan na nakita tayo na naghihintay sa mga ospital na nag-aababa sakali pero medyo hindi lang sila nagpa-unlock ng interview. At meron naman yung mga iba na nakikipag-contact pa din sa mga kapamilya nila na nasa kabilang mga probinsya dito sa Cebu.
Arles, I understand that relief packs are being distributed na already to different areas, affected areas rather. Pero ang katanong dito, Arles, is nasaan yung mga displaced families?
Kagabi, Angela, sa pagdating pa lang natin dito, no, medyo malayo-layo nga 3 oras ang ating binyahe para talagang makita yung epicenter nitong lindol. So far, nakita natin yung mga pamilya na na-displace na nasa mahigit 20,000 nga no, na nabanggit ko. Yung ilan sa kanila ay natutulog sa gilid ng kalsada. Yung iba naman, yung mga bata, dahil nga medyo maulan din, no, ay nagsipagbalot na lamang ng mga plastic sa kanilang mga ulo at kanilang mga katawan. At talagang parang nagkaroon ng camping sa labas ng kanilang mga tahanan. Siyempre, tinanong natin at naiintindihan natin kung bakit nga ba umabot sa ganitong punto. Paulit-ulit ang kanilang tugon na sinasabi nila ang kanilang pangamba na magkaroon muli ng pagyanig at sila ay malibing ng buhay sa kanilang mga tahanan. Kaya mas maigi na daw na nasa open space kung saan maaari silang makatakbo agad at hilahin na lamang ang kanilang mga kasama sa kanilang mga tirahan para sa gayon ay masiguro pa rin ang kanilang kaligtasan.
Well, we understand also na marami pang dapat gawin at this point in time. But ang gobyerno ba dyan sa Cebu ay nagbanggit na sila ng kanilang possible plan para dito sa mga displaced families na to. Most specifically, yung mga wala na talagang matitirhan, walang babalikan na titirhan.
Sa ngayon ay kasama yan, Angela, sa ating kukunin, no, sa pahayag ng probinsya ng Cebu dahil ngayong araw din ay dumating nga dito si Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. para personal na inspeksyonin ang naging pagkasira ng mga ari-arian at kung gaano nga ba kalala ang naging 6.9 magnitude na lindol dito, no? At sa nakuha nating schedule ay mayroong ilang mga lugar na kung saan kasama ito sa mga prone na area, no, sa mga pinakatinamaan. Ang nakakalungkot pa dito, Angela at Diego, nakakuha tayo ng ulat na yung mga residente na naapektuhan noong bagyong Yolanda noong 2013, kung hindi tayo nagkakamali, mayroon ditong isang tirahan o isang compound na inilagay para sa kanila at tinawag ang kanilang mga tahanan na disaster-proof and ready. Pero sa kasamaang palad, kasama ang kanilang mga tirahan sa mga nasira. At ayun nga, ang kanilang kinalulungkot ay saan na naman sila pupulutin pagkatapos nitong nangyaring lindol.
Arles, may mga reports na pumapasok na yung frontliners natin, specifically yung rescue and retrieval teams, no, ay nahihirapan sorting through the rubble. It's because wala daw silang heavy machinery or equipment that will assist them in doing so. Kasi yung mga ibang rescue and retrieval teams sa US, ay may... okay, Arles, we'll get back to you later. We have urgent news coming in. Please stand by and stay safe. Thank you, Arles de los Santos, reporting live from Bogos City, Cebu. And now, let's get more updates on the situation in Cebu. We have San Remigio Mayor Mariano Martinez. Good morning, Mayor. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Good morning. Yeah.
Yes, Mayor. Kamusta na po ang sitwasyon dyan sa inyo?
Well, actually, our retrieval operations are already stopped. We're not getting any new requests for retrieval. So right now, we're already on our phase 2 relief operations already. On our phase 2 relief, it's ongoing. My initial problem right now is on logistics. Usual problem, logistics. Bringing the needed relief to the people that really need the help. So that's not a problem. Water, still no water. Right now it's just reconnected the water, so the electricity is the last of the electric companies to be able to the water sources to be able to reconnect the water sources. The problem is the water that's coming out is still very muddy and murky. Yeah.
Mayor, I understand there's a request from different airlines right now to, carry or airlift yung mga needed relief po sa inyong lugar. Meron na po bang nagsagawa nun?
Not yet.
Not yet. You're still waiting for that.
Yeah.
Okay. What about the rescue teams na sinasabi po na ipapadala po sa inyo na manggagaling po dito sa Manila, sa Pasig,
Davao,
na maaring tumulong sa inyo?
Yeah, we've got a lot of rescue teams already that are right. And actually, we've already, as I mentioned again, we've already moved to phase 2. Retrieval is already finished. We're moving already to relief operations there. Bringing relief goods to people. Our problem here is that most of the people are living outside their homes. They're not willing to go back to their homes because some of their houses are either partially damaged or some are totally damaged. The ones that are partially damaged, they're still scared to go in because there's still tremors until now.
Right.
So people are scared to go in. So they're staying out. They're staying out in their houses outside. And so, but to me, it's okay now because as long as they can live with their neighbors, with their relatives, okay lang. Yung problema lang is water and electricity. Very difficult to move.
Right.
You don't have water and electricity. Yeah, that's it.
Mayor, do we have estimated the reported damages na po brought about by this quake?
Actually, yet, that's the thing. I don't have the exact figures yet. But, I'll be able to get that maybe later this afternoon.
What about po the communication lines, the power lines, yung tubig po, kamusta po dyan?
Right. Right now, the power lines actually, it's not like before in Baguioba, the typhoons, where the power lines are down. Here, the power lines are still there. The other problem is the supply of electricity. We used to get it from Mayte, underground cable. Now that's not available. So they're getting it from different source. I don't know where our electric cooperative is getting it from, but they told me they restructured it and they've been able to bring it in. The problem lang is our establishment and even our government buildings are not yet ready to tap because we're not yet sure whether the electrical lines, the gas lines,
Right.
structurally, they're safe to occupy the building.
Yeah. Yung mga hospitals po dyan, affected po sila, of course, ano?
Yes, so, but it's actually our closest hospital is a provincial hospital here in Bogo City. And that's where we're sending all our patients. We're treating, initially the problem there was the patients, they get treated with us, just minor wounds, with sutures, we can do that. But more than that, with fractures and all that, we send them to the hospital. The hospital was overwhelmed in the first few days. So we needed this ambulances to be able to bring them to the city. And so the city, no problem, man. So now you'll notice that if you go from city to the north, every few minutes, every week, you'll see ambulances going back and forth.
Well, I understand there's a lot to be done. Hindi na nga po natin magkamayan kung ano po yung uunahin natin dito. But of course, our concern here is saan po natin, ano po yung plano ng government po natin ngayon doon sa mga displaced families na wala na pong mauuwian ngayon dahil sa lindol?
Yes, I think that will be our next problem. All those families that have houses totally damaged, right now, we don't really have LGUs that have the resources to help them because there are just too many. So we'll be seeing where we can get help from.
All right.
So right now, we're here. We're meeting with the municipalities that is affected by the typhoon by the earthquake, and hopefully, the president hopefully will be able to answer some of these questions.
Lastly, Mayor, aside from water, the basic necessities that you guys need there, meron pa po ba kayong panawagan na kailangan po ngayon ng inyong lugar?
Well, actually, initially, tents. I still need tents. I still need, in my evacuation centers, since we're not using any buildings, we're open fields naman amo. What we're using is just open areas. We're putting tents. I need portalets just to borrow. Yeah, because that's what we lack. We have no water. We facilitate tents to be under their rains and ready to eat food packs. Okay.
Would you know din po ba, Mayor, kung nakapag-assess na po sa mga buildings po ngayon?
Not yet. That's the thing there. I'm waiting for my municipal engineer. And I've asked already help from the Constructors Association of Cebu, whether they can also help us with structural engineers and if they can help send here to our municipality. Okay, the sooner we can get to assess our buildings, then the sooner we'll be able to get back our businesses and function normally. Without that, it's all a standstill. Very difficult. People cannot go back to work.
Oo nga eh. So hanggang ngayon po, suspended po yung mga klase. Tsaka walang makapagtrabaho. Alright.
Classes and work also.
Yes, that's right. Alright, Mayor, our thoughts and prayers are with you there sa Cebu. Of course, we will continue to get in touch with you. Maraming salamat po sa inyong oras. San Remigio Mayor Mariano Martinez.
Thank you.
Talagang
nagmamadali si Mayor dahil meron din daw siyang meeting with the President. Kasi parating ngayon doon, o nandoon na siguro ang ating Presidente.
Oo. What this teaches us kasi, no matter the amount of preparation, pag tinamaan ka ng ganito, iba ang on the ground response. Case in point, saludo tayo sa frontliners and what they're doing and trying to accomplish. But you could see medyo magulo pa yung paglabas ng numero. Kasi each agency may kanya-kanyang iba-ibang numero, 'di ba? Mas maganda sana parang yung sistema ng bagyo, you have the number of deaths, the number of injured, and still missing and unaccounted for. So at least we know what to expect, diba? At saka yung mga loved ones na they know where to go, where to give the info. Kasi medyo...
ang tawag doon yung meeting point, diba, kapag something like this happened. Kasi dito sa Manila, when there were meeting about yung sa the big one, diba, sabi nila, meron tayong parang pinaka-headquarters na pwedeng puntahan, which is in Viluna, if I'm not mistaken.
Viluna is for Quezon City.
Oh, for Quezon
But what I'm saying also, aside from yung meeting point, this is very important kasi pag nag-big earthquake, magbibiyak yung mga location, sino ba lalapitan ko for numbers, diba? Kasi you have the Provincial Disaster Risk Office, you also have the mga OCD na mga kanya-kanyang LGU, di ba? You have yung mga
information office.
Oo, so like if you try nyo nga, i-google, di ba? Casualties ng earthquake, you'll have different news agencies, different numbers, di ba? So, mas maganda centralized para medyong in such a way na the numbers are easy to access.
Oo, tsaka itong nangyari ngayon sa Cebu also would remind us as well, no, dito yung tungkol sa the big one, no. Talaga dito sa atin sa Philippines, dapat pag-igihan natin yung disaster preparedness natin. When it comes, of course, yung building code, stricter building codes natin. Yung ibang ngayon nakikita natin doon sa Cebu yung mga structures na mga talagang nasira. Sino ba yung mga contractors doon? Kasi baka mamaya hindi nga sumusunod sa mga building codes. Sa Japan, they have a very ang tawag doon? Strict
building code.
Tsaka yung mga disaster preparedness nila, diba? Aside from building codes, yung kanilang early warning systems, diba? Pagdating sa earthquake, and of course yung everyday na pagpapaalala doon sa mga residents nila doon, sa countrymen nila regarding this through mga regular earthquake drills, etc.
Tsaka one last thing, what this teaches you is this may expose yet another form of corruption with regards sa mga building codes, diba? Kasi ang daming building na pumapasa sa inspections, ang daming permits na nagagrant na for construction na
substandard.
Kasi if you have permits and you have inspections, pwedeng sabihin nilang isara nyo yan kasi it's not up to standard or hindi kayo pwede mag-construct dyan. Pero ang daming nako-construct, ang daming na-approve. This will expose, teka lang, itong mga building na nakita natin na sira, pumasa ba? Diba? So,
saka yung
let's see moving forward.
Historical Commission, National Historical Commission, yun sa mga heritage churches sa mga nasira, kapag may mga nakita daw silang mga parte-parte doon, wag nakawin, itabi, ibigay para pagka nagkaroon ng reconstruction, maisama pa rin yun.
More of the original pieces.
Kanina, concern ko din doon sa ating mga kababayan, mga nasa labas na natutulog, yung parang nagka-camp na sila because natatakot sila pumasok, ay baka mag-ulan-ulan, no? But speaking of ulan in weather, Paolo has intensified into a tropical storm according to Pag-asa. Its center was last located approximately 705 kilometers east of Infanta, Quezon. The storm is forecast to make landfall over Isabela or northern Aurora by tomorrow morning and may intensify further into a severe tropical storm or typhoon before moving over the West Philippine Sea. Tropical cyclone wind signal number 1 has been raised in several parts of Luzon, including Cagayan, Isabela, Quirino, and other northern provinces.
For more weather updates, we have Pag-asa weather specialist Benison Estareja. Benison, good morning.
Good morning, Sir Angelo and Miss Angela.
Benison, di pa tayo nakaka-recover sa mga... Well, we had, of course, yung dalawang bagyo. We have the earthquake. But I understand si Paulo is prepped to be a strong one. Tama ba yan?
Yes. As of now po, tropical storm category ito and expected pa rin naman nalalakas pa ito into a severe tropical storm po bukas bago siya tumama sa kalupaan po ng northern and central Luzon pagsapit po ng umaga. So yung possible landfall areas po natin is Isabela, Aurora.
Ay, Paolo, kasi initially, based sa discussions natin, yung mga supposedly mga bagyong papasok at this tail end of the year ay manggagaling sa southern areas. What caused this storm from the northern area?
Sa ngayon po kasi, during early October, hindi pa ganun ka-establish yung high-pressure area sa may North Pacific Ocean. Ibig sabihin, may tendency pa po na umakyat pa itong mga bagyo kapag ganitong panahon. But pagsapit po ng kalakasan ng amihan, that's November, December, January, yung time kung saan napakalakas na po ng high-pressure area sa taas. So ang tendency ng mga bagyo ay mag-move westward. And as a result, nagkakaroon tayo ng landfall sa may southern Luzon, Visayas, and Caraga regions.
To that, Paolo, I understand sa Friday ito tatama, most specifically northern to central Luzon. So what wind signals do we expect by then?
By tomorrow po, possible na meron na tayong hanggang wind signal number 3, no? So that's around 100 kilometers per hour po na lakas ng hangin dun sa mga areas dito sa may northern Luzon. Portions of Cagayan Valley, Cordillera region, Ilocos region, yan yung mga magkakaroon ng pinakamalalakas na hangin. Some other areas pa in northern and central Luzon, mga signals number 1 and number 2. So meron pa rin po mga pagbugso, and some areas pa dito sa may southern Luzon, which includes northern Quezon and northern Bicol region, meron pong hanggang signal number 1.
I understand ang path nito sa north siya, no? Pero I was wondering lang kung merong effect din ito sa bandang Cebu, because syempre may nangyayaring retrieval operations, rescue and retrieval operations doon, and kung umulan pa, kawawa din yung mga nagre-rescue, and of course yung mga kababayan natin na ngayon nagka-camp out na lang, hindi pumapasok sa kanilang mga bahay.
Ito po, no, by tomorrow kasi yung time kung saan magkocross nga sa may northern and central Luzon si Bagyong Paulo. And ang nakikita naman natin, wala namang enhancement or napaka-minimum ng enhancement ng southwest monsoon dito sa may parting Visayas. Magkakaroon ng mga cloudy skies and mga light to moderate rains in some areas sa may western Visayas. But dito sa may central portion such as Cebu, we're not expecting naman na magkakaroon ng drastic na pagbabago in terms of rainfall and hangin.
Lastly, Paolo, before I let you go, no, ano magiging effect nito sa NCR? Benison pala, sorry.
By tomorrow po, by tomorrow we're expecting sa NCR magkakaroon ng cloudy skies, and in-expect pa rin natin yung mga light to moderate rains. Mas frequent yung mga pag-ulan kumpara nitong mga nagdaang 2 araw. And meron ding mga pabugso-bugsong hangin na kaunti, but then pagsapit po ng weekend, improving weather naman.
All right, thank you for that, Pag-asa Weather Specialist Benison Estareja. Sorry pag nag-shift ko, natawag ko siyang Paolo si Benison. But you know, sunod-sunod ang nangyayari sa atin. So, pangatlong bagyo?
Our thoughts and prayers
pangatlong bagyo
with Cebu. And ito si Paolo. Anong
third bagyo?
Sa month na to. Oo. Tapos we'll be expecting, I think, 3 or 4 more.
Yeah, for October. Yeah.
For this year.
All right.
We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News.
Bumisita sa MQuest ang ilang miyembro ng UNESCO para pag-usapan ang media and information literacy strategies at ang partnership nito kasamang MQuest.
Everything might just be one click away where anyone is at risk in this digital age, which is why the United Nations Children's Fund, or UNICEF, aims to strengthen the media and information literacy as one of their global initiatives.
We want to reach out to as many people as possible, out in society, from the young to the old, to raise their awareness to begin with, and then also to strengthen the capacity to be able to interpret and share the right information.
According to UNICEF, one challenge today is that some prefer social media than hard copies.
And it's very difficult to control social media information because it can also change every single, even in over a second, right? Not even a minute or hours anymore. UNESCO may be providing some guidance, but it is not for us to implement in the country. It has to be our local partners to share the knowledge and skills.
UNICEF also teamed up with MediaQuest to raise more awareness on media literacy across the country with the help of Tingka Muna Advocacy Campaign. A conference is set to be held on November 4, 2025.
I had always wanted a sustainable advocacy program for MediaQuest. It just makes sense that advocacy for us must be about information discernment.
In the Philippines, MediaQuest is our first partner among media outlets that is piloting media literacy in different ways. We hope that through this initiative, school kids will also be able to learn more about how news are made and what are workflows and processes of creating credible, accurate information, and that can in turn increase trust.
Mobile journalist Ray Vicente, we are One News.
Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. The Senate has adopted a resolution urging the International Criminal Court to place former President Rodrigo Duterte under house arrest. Here's a report.
Former President Rodrigo Duterte has been detained for over 6 months at the International Criminal Court Detention Facility in The Hague, Netherlands. This is in connection with alleged crime against humanity linked to his controversial war on drugs. Yesterday, Duterte's allies in the Senate filed a resolution urging the ICC to grant him house arrest. The measure passed with 15 votes in favor, 3 against, and 2 abstentions. It was introduced by Minority Leader Alan Peter Cayetano and Majority Leader Mig Zubiri and sponsored by Senators Bato de la Rosa, Robin Padilla, Amy Marcos, Rodante Marcoleta, Bongo, Jinggoy Estrada, and Joel Villanueva. All of them voted yes, alongside Senators Sherwin Gatchalian, J.V. Ejercito, Loren Legarda, Ping Lacson, Erwin Tulfo, and Mark Villar.
For us as a nation, I cannot imagine what the country will do if something, I don't want to say it, but if something happens with him in the detention center at wala man tayong ginawa.
Ako'y nakikiusap na sana isang tabi muna natin ang politika at ating paghariin sa ating puso ang ating pagiging Pilipino na kung saan nakaukit sa ating kultura at sa ating tradisyon ang pagmamahal, pagrespeto, pag-aruga sa mga matatanda, sa may mga sakit, at sa mga mahihina. Yan po ngayon si Pangulong Duterte. He is old, he is sick, and he is very weak. Very weak na hindi na siya makatayo. Hirap na siya makatayo ngayon. Kaya ako pinakiusap sa inyo na sana bago huli ang lahat.
Those who voted against the measure were Senators Risa Hontiveros, Kiko Pangilinan, and Bam Aquino. Pangilinan said that the cries for justice from thousands of victims of extrajudicial killings must take precedence.
May basihan din yung daing at yung dalamhati at yung masasaktan na libo-libo nating mga kababayan na pinatay. Bilang chairman ng Committee on Justice and Human Rights, nais ko man pumanig sa isang banda, tungkulin kong pumanig sa mga daing ng naghahanap ng hustisya.
Senate President Tito Soto abstained, saying he did not want to disrespect the family of victims. Senator Raffy Tulfo also abstained, citing a lack of proof of Duterte's illness.
I am supportive of any efforts to bring comfort to PRRD and to uplift his well-being during this crucial time. However, my choice or decision in my conscience might even help in further dividing the nation. Therefore, I register an abstention.
It should be proven na meron po siyang sakit. Kasi yung po yung lumalabas sa balita na may sakit po siya, matanda na siya, hindi siya kumakain, hindi siya nakatulog. Then, if it's true, I'll cast my vote as yes. Pero without proof na yun nga talaga ang totoong pangyari, then I will abstain.
Senators Camille Villar, Lito Lapid, Cheese Escudero, and Pia Cayetano were not in the session hall when the chamber voted. However, International Criminal Court Assistant to Counsel Attorney Cristina Conti said that the Senate resolution carries no weight in the Hague proceedings. Conti stressed that the CC will only weigh factual and legal arguments in deciding on Duterte's request for adjournment. She further warned that the move could even backfire as the ICC may interpret it as an attempt to undermine its independence.
Now let's get some insights from Attorney Joel Butuyan, an ICC-accredited lawyer. Attorney, thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Angelo and Angela, and thanks for having me.
Yan, Attorney, we all heard yung sinabi ni Attorney Cristina Conti na wala naman daw weight ito sa ICC. But I'd like to ask now, baka nga walang weight, but does this in essence, is it like saying that the Senate guarantees that President Duterte will abide by all the ICC rulings under the jurisdiction of the Philippine Senate until such time na may trial?
Alam mo, Angelo, siguro bago maghain ng ganyang klaseng resolution yung Senate, siguro dapat ibalik muna nila tayo, no, ang Pilipinas sa membership natin sa ICC. Right. paano tayo papakinggan kung hindi man lang tayo miyembro, no? So, I think tama yung sinabi ni Attorney Conti na talagang walang basihan, walang weight, no? And hindi ito papakinggan dahil may sariling standards talaga yung ICC on whether or not to grant interim release. Dahil itong hinain ng Senado is essentially a request for the interim release of President Duterte.
Before I turn it over, Attorney, kasi nabasa ko part of the resolution and it states there, bago magkaroon ng i-release daw, request for release, tignan muna, suriin daw ng doktor ng ICC si former President, and if daw kailangan talaga na i-release daw sana house arrest dito sa Pilipinas. Ang question ko is, we all know naman what the ICC doctors will say, that they're capable of taking care of him. But do you think in essence this is putting on record ng mga senador na ito may ginawa kami para pag may nangyari, God forbid, pagdating ng eleksyon ay hindi mag-lashback sa amin to?
Parang symbolic lang ba?
Symbolic.
Para sa akin, lumalabas nga yung bias ng mga senador dito, no? Dahil sobra silang concerned sa kalagayan ni former President Duterte. Pero meron ba silang resolution passing, no? That they passed commiserating with the 30,000 families who lost lives. Wala man silang batas o resolution na pinasa para tulungan yung mga batang naging orphan, no, nawalan ng breadwinner sa kanilang pamilya, no? Kung talagang makatao sila, dapat unahin nila yung mga biktima, no, bago sila magpakita ng commiseration sa isang tao who is accused of mass murdering 30,000 people in our country.
Attorney, could such a request backfire? Let's say, for example, sabihin nila, could this be seen as interference or political pressure on ICC? And backfire meaning na sabihin nila, talagang makapangyarihan pa si Pangulong Duterte dyan sa Pilipinas.
Tama yun, Angela, no? It can actually backfire. It can actually work against the interest of the former president, dahil talagang this only shows how powerful the former president is, even if he is already out of power, no? Dahil he can actually have the whole Senate, no? Practically the whole Senate, a majority, a super majority of the Senate, to pass as a resolution calling for his interim release, regardless of the standards of the ICC. No? So talagang this could be taken as evidence by the ICC na talagang there's really risk na if Mr. Duterte is going to be granted interim release, hindi na siya babalik. No? There's risk na the victims and the witnesses will be in danger, no? Dahil talagang he still has so many powerful friends in the country, no? And yung third na element ng interim release is he is still capable of committing further crimes if he's released.
So you believe, Attorney, this is something that was done not in coordination with the defense team ni former President Duterte? It's because it goes against what they've been trying to push all along, na he is not a risk in any way, means or form possible.
I think, Angelo, itong resolution na to was passed for political purposes, no? Unang-una, nakita natin, it deflected yung attention ng mga tao doon sa nangyayaring flood control investigation, no? Nawala ng konti yung attention ng mga tao doon. So I think that's one principal reason kung bakit pinas ito, no? Pangalawa is they want to get into the good graces of the Duterte supporters. But insofar as helping the cause of the former president, the ICC, it actually will not benefit Mr. Duterte.
I was wondering kasi they're raising this issue, his health concern kay Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. Doon pa lang tayo sa stage ng pre-trial chamber. Diba dapat po itong ganitong usapin na pag-uusapan na ito sa sa trial court itself?
Oo, Angela, saka nakasalang na yung issue na yan. In fact, ongoing na yung hearing dyan, no? Meron ng mga medical experts who are giving their medical assessment of the former president. Yung in-house na doctors ng ICC Tapos yung defense has already apparently given its medical experts findings, no? And yung prosecutors are also going to give their own medical experts. So nakasalang na yung issue na yan, no? And for the Senate to butt in, talagang hindi makakatulong. Dahil talagang it will only call the court's attention to the fact na, sobrang powerful pa nitong si Mr. Duterte. Talagang dapat hindi magkaroon ng interim release.
Attorney, may precedence ba ito? May nangyari bang ganito ever sa history ng ICC na mismo yung parliament o yung lower or upper house ang nagpasa mismo ng resolution na hindi naman miyembro sa ICC asking for the release of the detained accused?
Meron na, Angelo, no? In fact, meron ng gobyerno, no, ng isang akusado sa ICC. I just cannot remember the particular country right now. But meron ng ganito nangyari na yung presidente mismo and yung parliament called for the interim release, no? Pero hindi pinagbigyan and hindi binigyan ng saysay yung ganitong klaseng action.
What message does this send us, itong usapin na ito, attorney? Kasi parang sinasabi niya, porkit matanda na, ito na lang muna yung gawin natin, wag na nang siya humarap dun sa mga nagawa allegedly during his youth.
Alam mo, Angela, hindi lang actually interim release yung kanilang punteriya dito, no? Kasi kung sinasabi nilang dapat bigyan ng interim release dahil matanda na siya, talaga ang ultimate na punteriya and ang message na kanilang sinasabi dapat hindi na litisin si former President Duterte dahil kung makukonvict siya, talagang makukulong din siya, no? So talagang yun yung punteriya nila na the former president should be exempted, no, from liability notwithstanding the crimes against humanity, the despicable crimes that committed against his own people. And
before we let you go, quickly lang, attorney, wala nang panahon, but I'd like to ask, when will the trial start, do you think?
Wala pang sinasabing date, Angelo, dahil gusto nilang tapusin itong hearings on the fitness of the former president. Pero ang sabi ng pretrial chamber na immediately after ma-resolve yung fitness ni former President Duterte, dapat ready na kaagad, no? So kung halimbawa sa November ma-resolve na yung fitness niya, I think immediately magkakaroon ng confirmation hearings, Angelo.
All right. Thank you for that, Attorney Joel Butuyan, an ICC accredited lawyer, for joining us live via Zoom.
Thank you.
All right. Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Remulla said that Senators Mark and Camille Villar and their mother, former Senator Cynthia Villar, are being investigated for ties to a contractor that was awarded 18.5 billion pesos in government contracts. Here's the report.
3 members of the Villar family, Senators Mark and Camille Villar, and their mother, former Senator Cynthia Villar, are now under investigation for alleged irregularities in government infrastructure projects. The Department of Justice is looking into 18 billion pesos worth of contracts in Las Piñas and Cavite.
Lahat ng klaseng project yan. Lahat in the menu. From school buildings to roads to asphalt overlay to revetments.
A key concern is a possible conflict of interest involving Senator Mark Villar, who served as Secretary of the Department of Public Works and Highways from 2016 to 2021.
Yung first cousin niya, yung contractor doon sa lugar nila. Because of that prohibited interest, with his cousin being the contractor in Las Piñas.
Remulla also noted that potential conflicts could extend to Senators Camille and Cynthia Villar.
They're related interest. Isa lang sila interest nila. Isang relationship lang yan. Diba? Isang family lang yan. First degree of consanguinity to the 4th degree of consanguinity. Diba? Or 3rd degree pa. From Cynthia to the contractor's 3rd degree.
If proven, these actions would violate both of the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for Public Officials and the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act. Aside from the Villars, the DOJ is investigating more than 200 other legislators, former and current government officials, and contractors. Remulla said 67 individuals have already been identified as contractors, or those known as congressman turned contractors.
Everybody knows about it in Congress. I don't know if that's known to them or it's just the impunity of it all. That people don't care anymore if it's against the law because no one's going to run after them, they think.
The Independent Commission for Infrastructure confirmed that Senator Mark Villar will be invited for questioning due to his previous role as DPWH Secretary.
That's a possibility, yes. Because he was a former secretary of the DPWH, right? And we'll let you know when we will be inviting Senator Villar.
Former House Speaker Martin Romualdez is also scheduled, while invitations have been sent to former Senate President Cheese Escudero. For News 5 Gio Robles, we are One News.
Now, the Bureau of Customs says about 100 million pesos in taxes went unpaid on 13 luxury vehicles of contractors Curly and Sara Discaya. The couple's Rolls-Royce Cullinan, a loan worth 22 million pesos, should have been taxed 33 million pesos, but documents were missing. Customs issued a seizure order on the 13 vehicles, which may be auctioned if the Discayas fail to prove the purchases were legal. The agency is also summoning 10 of its own personnel to explain how the vehicles passed through.
Don't go away because we're not done yet. Stay with us.
Nagsagawa ng press conference ang Jesus is Our Shield Worldwide Ministries para sa kanilang 36th Grandest Living Like Jesus anniversary. Held at One Balete Hotel, Apostle Renato D. Carillo led the official press conference for the 36th anniversary of the ministry. The room was filled with prayers led by Apostle Carillo. Beyond discussing the events for the upcoming anniversary, he also addressed press questions regarding current challenges in flood control projects.
Huwag pong isipin ng lahat na nasa posisyon niya na untouchable sila. God is alive.
Apostle Carillo expressed his deepest sympathy for those affected by the recent Typhoon Opong, the 6.9 magnitude earthquake in Cebu, and the eruption of Taal Volcano.
Sa lahat po ng mga kababayan namin nakaranas po ng bagyo ng lindol ng baha all over the country, huwag po kayo mawala ng pag-asa. Mahal po kayo ng Diyos. Nananalangin po kami. Alis po tayo rito. Hindi po tayo papabayaan ng Diyos.
Jesus is Our Lord Worldwide Ministries mark its 36th anniversary under the theme, The Season of Christ's Miracles. The celebration will take place on October 8 and 9, 2025 at the Worship Center and on October 12, 2025 at the Marikina Center. A highlight of the anniversary events will be the National Prayer for Peace, set for November 5, 2025 at 2 p.m. at the Playtime Phil Oil Center, San Juan City.
Expect that God will touch you. At ang lahat ng nawala sa inyo, ibabalik niya. Ang lungkot niyo, ialisin niya. Ang luha niyo, ipapahirin niya. Ang kapanglawan niyo, ipapalitan niya ng kagalakan. At ang bagong buhay, ihatid niya po sa bawat isa.
Mobile journalist Francis Rivera, we are One News.
Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. The Muntinlupa Regional Trial Court has reaffirmed the acquittal of former Senator Laila de Lima in a drug-related case. In a September 30 order, Branch 204 presiding Judge Abraham Joseph Alcantara granted the prosecution's motion to withdraw its plea to overturn the acquittal, effectively closing the case. The court emphasized that an acquittal is final and upon promulgation and cannot be reopened, noting that granting the motion would have violated the constitutional ban on double jeopardy. De Lima, a critic of former President Duterte's controversial drug war, spent over 6 years in detention before her release in 2023.
Smart Araneta Coliseum marks the 50th anniversary of the iconic boxing match Thrilla in Manila. The details in this report from mobile journalist Denise Valdesancho.
50 years later, nagbabalik na ang Thrilla in Manila Part 2. Thrilla in Manila is back in the Big Dome, just in time para sa 50th anniversary ng legendary 1975 bout nina Muhammad Ali at Smokin' Joe Frazier sa Big Dome. Magsasama-sama para sa live boxing exhibitions this October 29 ang top fighters, kabilang sina Melvin Gringo Jerusalem, Sia Col Wacuse, Marlon Tapales, Yumir Marshal, Carl James Martin, Weljon Mindoro, Vadim Tukov, Georgi Yunovidov, at Nico Ali Walsh. At syempre, sa Big Dome din yan. Personal na bumisita si Champ Manny Pacquiao para sa big announcement.
I'm so excited and happy na lumaban na ako dito sa Araneta, and then now magpo-promote ako ng isang big fight. Kahit hindi pa ako pinanganak nung time na yun, ako ang kumbaga nag-lead for this promotion.
Dagdag pa ng 8th Division World Champ, opportunity ito upang magka-big break ang sasaling fighters.
It's a big help for our boxers na mabigyan sila ng break to fight a world championship. And also, mabigyan yung ibang mga boxers ng break din na makapalumaban sa mga ganitong international promotion.
Bukod sa Thrilla in Manila celebration, goal din daw ng world champ na mas mabigyan ng spotlight ang boxing sa bansa.
Karamihan ng mga boxers na na-encounter ko dito sa, nakakausap ko dito sa ating bansa nalulungwad na nawala ng pag-asa kasi wala namang nagpo-promote. Kaya sinisikap natin na magkakaroon ng promotion blow by blow every month para at least kahit pa paano magkaroon sila ng chance na lumaban.
Tampok din ang month-long immersive exhibits na nakapalibot sa Araneta Coliseum, pati official merchandise para sa mga bibisita. Mobile Journal Denise Valdesancho po, hatid ang mukha ng balita.
The Senate has commended Alas Pilipinas after the men's volleyball team made history in their debut at the FIVB World Championship. The team finished 19th, highlighted by a surprise victory over Egypt in a hard-fought match against Iran. All 24 senators adopted a resolution filed by Minority Leader Alan Peter Cayetano, praising the players for bringing pride to the nation and proving that Filipino athletes can shine on the global stage. Lawmakers said the team's success builds confidence for the Philippines' hosting of the FIVB Women's Championship in 2029. Congrats sa Egypt. Yung sa Iran, we almost won against Iran. Kita mo yung game na yan. And to fight, to have a hard-fought match against Iran, a powerhouse in volleyball, that's a good showing. Oo. And to think that this group medyo bago-bago pa lang together with their coach.
Sunod ulit, bawi.
Ha?
Bawi.
All right, before we let you go, I'd like to leave everyone with a quote. Rebuilding after a calamity is more than restoring what was lost. It's creating the strength and hope we never knew we had. And that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Lagunzad Castro.
And I am Angelo Castro III. We are One News.
All sides, all the time.